and Sir David Gascoigne.
Thank you, everyone. Please take a seat. I ngā mana, i ngā reo, i ngā iwi o ngā hoe whā, tēnei aku mihi mahana ki a koutou. Kia ora tātou katoa. No mai haere mai rā ki te whare kawana. I specifically acknowledge our kuia puhi wāhine Tibble, our kaumātua Joe Harawera, tēnā kōrua. And I offer a very special welcome to today's honour recipients. It's a real pleasure to host this investiture ceremony this afternoon and bring together 13 honour recipients, together with their whānau and friends, to recognise the contributions they've made to our country. As Governor-General, I have the authority and the privilege on behalf of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, the Queen of New Zealand, to hold investitures for her and to confer royal honours, our nation's highest honours, on individuals who've made exceptional contributions to their communities and to our nation. Hosting an investiture ceremony is one of the most important duties I have as Governor-General because it allows me, on behalf of all New Zealanders, to recognise and thank them for helping to make Aotearoa New Zealand a better place to live. Some recipients have a national public profile, others are well known in their own communities. But what they have in common is the positive impact they've had on the economic, environmental, social or cultural well-being of our nation. I hope this will be a memorable day for you and for your whānau and friends who've come to witness your investiture and celebrate with you. Catriona MacLeod will shortly read citations for each recipient and invite them to come forward to receive their insignia. And I invite you to join me in congratulating and thanking them for their service to our country. Thank you.
Your Excellency, to receive the insignia of a Companion of the New Zealand Order of Merit, Professor Stephen Chambers of Christchurch for services to infectious disease research. Professor Stephen Chambers established the Infectious Diseases Department at Christchurch Hospital in 1987 and remained clinical director until 2015. The department has trained a large proportion of New Zealand's infectious disease physicians. He founded and developed the Infection Group, a collaboration between the Canterbury District Health Board and University of Otago that is now a leading infectious diseases clinical research team. His public health roles have included chair of the Polio Eradication Committee for the Ministry of Health, member of the Medical Committee of the Pacific Leprosy Foundation, chair of Canterbury DHB's Antimicrobial Stewardship and Infection Control Committees, and co-chair of the South Island Hospital Antimicrobial Group. Professor Chambers founded the Charles Farthing Memorial Scholarship Fund to promote research among young doctors and scientists. Professor Stephen Chambers, please come forward. Dr. David Kerr of Christ Church for services to health and business. Dr. David Kerr worked in general practice in Christ Church for many years and drove the establishment of Pegasus Medical Group. Pegasus, a not-for-profit charitable organisation, is a budget-holding group which provides services for almost all general practices in Canterbury. Dr. Kerr has been chairman of Pegasus Medical Group and clinical leader mental health. He was one of the main drivers of the Health Pathways Information System. He has been a director and deputy chair of Pharmac, a member of the Executive Committee for the Christchurch City Mission Redevelopment Campaign, and a trustee of Life Education Trust South Island, and has held several positions on medical advisory boards. He is a trustee of the Champion Centre for Those with Intellectual Disabilities and chairman of Ryman Healthcare Limited. Dr. David Kerr, please come forward. Your Excellency, to receive the insignia of an Officer of the New Zealand Order of Merit, Mr. Murray Lynch of Wellington, for services to theatre. Murray Lynch began his professional theatre career in 1973 at Four Seasons Theatre, Ponganui. He was an associate director and later artistic director of Centrepoint Theatre, Palmerston North. He has served as associate director of Theatre Corporate in Auckland and artistic director of Maidment Arts Centre at Auckland University. He was founding director of Tantrum Theatre Company in Auckland. He worked as a projects administrator for QE2 Arts Council and became associate director and later director of Wellington's Downstage Theatre. He was head of actor training and directing at Toi Whakaari, New Zealand Drama School. As director of Playmarket, he's responsible for supporting the work of New Zealand playwrights. Mr. Lynch has served on many boards, currently for Theatre Archives New Zealand and the Hannah Playhouse Trust. Mr. Murray Lynch, please come forward. Mr. Roger Steele of Paraparaumu for services to the publishing industry and the arts. Roger Steele is Publishing Director of Steele Roberts Aotearoa in Wellington, which has published around 600 books, primarily in the genres of history, culture and politics, autobiography, biography and memoir, poetry, art and music, social issues and civil liberties. He has helped bring New Zealand lives and history to public attention, from national figures to those lesser known, such as the rainbow community. He has provided a platform for emerging writers and supported the development of New Zealand poetry. A number of authors published by Steele Roberts have won Montana New Zealand Book Awards, including Glenn Colquhoun, J.C. Sturm, and Hone Tufare. Mr. Steele was a trustee of the Wellington Sculpture Trust for 5 years and provided the trust with free office space for a further 12 years. Mr. Roger Steele, please come forward. Your Excellency, to receive the insignia of a member of the New Zealand Order of Merit, Mrs. Susan Anderson of Whanganui for services to restorative justice. Susan Anderson was coordinator, facilitator at the Whanganui Restorative Justice Trust Board, where she increased restorative justice provision in the region, mentored facilitators, and strengthened relationships with key stakeholders. She has been a member of the Executive Board of Restorative Practices Aotearoa, chair of the selection panel for the Morikanui Tertiary Educational Scholarships for the Whanganui Māori Trust Board, and chair of RISE, Stopping Violence Services. She has volunteered at the Ruapehu Police Whakakotahitanga and Whānau Challenge weekend retreats for recidivist family harm couples and families. Mrs. Anderson has presented papers at restorative justice conferences and was involved in professional development at Whanganui Polytechnic Universal College of Learning. Mrs. Susan Anderson, please come forward. Mrs. Jan Barnes of Mount Maunganui for services to local government and the community. Jan Barnes chaired the Matamata Community Board and represented the Matamata Ward on the District Council, becoming its first female mayor. She was co-chair of the Local Government New Zealand Rural Provincial Committee and Rural Zone representative to the LGNZ National Council Board. She was a member of the Matamata Public Relations Association Committee. She was a trustee and chair of the Matamata Community Resource Centre and the Matamata Community Health Shuttle. She is a founding member of MATE, or Matamata Apprentice Training Enterprise, and patron of Matamata Men's Shed. Mrs. Barnes chaired Matamata Centennial Committee and Mill Crescent Kindergarten and was a member of Firth Primary Fundraising Committee. Mrs. Jan Barnes, please come forward. Major David Bennett of Lower Hutt for services to the Salvation Army and the community. Major David Bennett was involved with the Salvation Army from 1965 until retiring from active service in 2018. He's been involved with church leadership in Auckland, Christchurch, Wellington, and the United Kingdom. He was youth director in Otago and Southland, national secretary for public relations, training principal of the Salvation Army Training College, and national coordinator of emergency services. He helped lead Salvation Army support following the Christchurch and Kaikoura earthquakes and international natural disasters. Major Bennett initiated a building renovation project for the Glenfield Salvation Army and introduced a scheme for the Christchurch City Corps that helped the church pay down its mortgage and become debt-free. Major David Bennett, please come forward. Mrs. Wendy Yours of Gisborne for services to early childhood education. Wendy Yours is the Tuamuki manager of Gisborne Community Early Education Centre, Te Whare Tiaki Tamariki Incorporated. She set up the Supervisor Support Group in Gisborne. She is a member of Te Tare Puna Ora o Aotearoa, Te Rito Maioha, and was on the initial Teacher Education Selection Panel for Tairawhiti. She helped set up the Quality Register. She's been part of the Early Childhood Workers Union, the Combined Early Childhood Union of Aotearoa, and NZEI Te Rio Roa. Mrs. Yours was a member of the Early Childhood Advisory Group to the New Zealand Teachers' Council and the consultation group that set up the 20 Hours Free ECE initiative. Mrs. Wendy Yours, please come forward. Mr. Gary Watts of Christchurch for services to mental health. Gary Watts holds a clinical advisory position assisting the World Health Organization. He helped to establish Christchurch Psychiatric Survivors, now MHAPS, and assisted a difficult selection of the mental health deinstitutionalization process throughout Canterbury. He's introduced many projects improving the quality of public mental health services. He has been board member of Comcare Trust and Step Ahead Trust, member of the Southern Regional Health Authority Disability Support Services Advisory Group, president of Christchurch Disabled Persons Assembly, and chairperson of the Christchurch Savage Club. He is a street and suburb coordinator for Neighbourhood Support Canterbury. Mr. Watts founded Sig Jaws Trust, which assists people who fall out of conventional type services. Mr. Gary Watts, please come forward. Your Excellency, to receive the Queen's Service Medal, Mr. Mike Burke of Rangawahia for services to wildlife conservation. Mike Burke has developed large sections of his family farm in Rangawahia into a wildlife reserve and habitat of more than 30 acres. He has established 3 wetlands which are available for public enjoyment via the Manawatu scenic route. After releasing trout into the wetlands several years ago, he became involved with Fish and Game's Take a Kid Fishing Day. He has built several netting houses with the aim of breeding and protecting Carolina wood ducks, pheasants, and Californian quail. Mr. Burke has successfully bred mute white swans, playing a significant role in this bird's presence in New Zealand. Mr. Mike Burke, please come forward. Mrs. Carol Charman of Napier for services to youth and people with intellectual disabilities. Carol Charman has volunteered with IHC since the early 1980s, including time as IHC Napier president and a member of the National Committee. She was a founding member of Parent to Parent New Zealand Counselling and Support Service and volunteered at Awatapu Special School. She was the first woman president of Napier West Rotary Club and assistant governor for Napier. She organised the Rotary Youth Programme of Enrichment, or RIPEN, and was involved with the Napier Rotary Pathways fundraising project, which raised $6 million for new pedestrian and cycle pathways. Mrs. Charman is currently co-treasurer of Green Meadows Club. Mrs. Carol Charman, please come forward. Reverend Alison Stewart of Martin for services to choral music. Reverend Alison Stewart chairs the Wellington branch of the Royal School of Church Music New Zealand and is part of its National Choir School. She's travelled extensively with choirs and organised national talent to join her local choirs for high-profile performances. She serves local church choirs as an accompanist and as musical director of the Palmerston North Choral Society. She is founder and musical director of the Women's Chamber Choir Camerata. She is director of music at Huntley School and a trustee of the Anglican Schools Trust Board. Mrs. Stewart was a Girl Guides unit leader in Palmerston North. Reverend Alison Stewart, please come forward. Ms. Janet Wilson of Ashurst for services to wildlife conservation. Janet Wilson first became involved in local conservation as a volunteer with the Department of Conservation, taking on the role of coordinator for the Oroa Blue Duck Protection Project. She has driven community-led FIO, blue duck recovery work, in the Oroa and Pohangina rivers in the southern Ruahine Ranges. She was the driving force behind the establishment of the Ruahine FIO Protection Trust, which she now chairs. She convenes the Ruahine FIO Protectors Collective. Ms. Wilson has supported Palmerston North search and rescue operations and has served on the Palmerston North Tramping and Mountaineering Club Committee for 20 years. Ms. Janet Wilson, please come forward. Your Excellency, the investiture has concluded.
Our honour system is our nation's highest public affirmation of outstanding individual achievement. It reinforces values and behaviours that sustain our communities and help our nation thrive and prosper. And these include service, courage, manaakitanga, and the pursuit of knowledge and excellence. By using their talents to make ours a better society, whether by service to their communities, or by their leadership in diverse fields of endeavour, or their commitment to excellence in their own field of expertise, our recipients have set a fine example for others. To the recipients, it's been wonderful to hear your stories today. You've demonstrated determination, commitment, and compassion in your daily lives. In your own way, each of you has contributed to the well-being of our people and our nation. In some cases, your influence and the impact of your work has extended beyond our shores. Your actions and the stories we've heard reflect the spirit of the words of notable New Zealander Sir Stephen Tyndall when he said, "The biggest thrill that anyone can get from creating something successful comes from putting something back." On behalf of all New Zealanders, I thank you for what you have put back in helping to make Aotearoa New Zealand a better place, whether by dedicating your lives to the public good, achieving distinction in your chosen field, or inspiring others with your leadership. Please wear your insignia with pride, knowing that your contributions are recognised and valued, and others are inspired by your example. Kia ora hui tātou katoa. It's nearly the end of the formal part of our ceremony today, but before we break for refreshments, can I ask you all to stand and join me in a rousing rendition of our national anthem.